It's time for a little comedy, a little content, and a lot of conversation. It's the Geno Jones Show, exclusively right here on YouTube. Now here's your host, Geno Jones.
Showtime. What's happening, everybody? Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, whatever time you're watching. So it is Thursday, March 11th. I got a special edition of the Geno Jones Daily Variety Show right here on my YouTube channel, brought to you today by the Lockwood Outdoor Advertising, converting cars to cash for your business. They have digital billboards here in the Carolinas. As a matter of fact, it is the only black-owned outdoor digital advertising company here in the state of South Carolina. So if you are about supporting black businesses in this era of racial reckoning, if you are out there, my white brothers and sisters, my melanin challenged brothers and sisters, and you want to know how can you support the cause of equity and equality, and how can you help and be anti-racist? Well, you can start by supporting black businesses. So it's LockwoodOutdoor.com. LockwoodOutdoor.com. 1 year ago today, March 11th, 2020, the World Health Organization declared COVID-19, the coronavirus COVID-19, a global pandemic. 1 year ago today, yes, the WHO, World Health Organization, basically said, we in trouble. So I got a special, and then everything stopped. The NBA, the National Basketball Association, going down the home stretch, basically it postponed all their games. It postponed the season indefinitely, which was a shock. In real time, I'm watching TV, I'm watching the game, and all of a sudden they say, the game is canceled tonight, and then all of a sudden the NBA has postponed the season indefinitely, and that was just a sign of things to come. That was, like they say, a canary in the coal mine. So today I have two guests that can speak to the gravity and the breadth and the impact that those two announcements had, not just on America, but globally. Dr. Damon Arnold, who's been a guest on the show. As a matter of fact, this is Dr. Arnold's third appearance. He is one of the top public health and infectious disease experts here in the country. I was calling him the Black Dr. Fauci, but I felt bad as like an insult. You know, not that I love Dr. Fauci, but I said, wait a minute, why can't Dr. Fauci be like the white Dr. Damon Arnold? So Dr. Arnold is here. He was the Illinois Director of Public Health for several years. And also Eric Clemons. Eric Clemons is a face and a voice you know from ESPN Sports Center and Fox Sports 1 and BET and sports anchor in Connecticut. So right now, without wasting any further time, I want to bring Dr. Damon Arnold and Eric Clemons to the show. Gentlemen, good evening. Thank you for joining me on this. Maybe you guys can help me frame this verbally. It is historic in a tragic way, but here we are a year later. So Eric, if you don't mind, let's start with the good doctor, Dr. Arnold. Welcome to the show. Thank you again, Dr. Arnold, for your time.
Thank you.
Because I know everybody is blowing you. Everybody.
Well, it's an honor to be here with you, Geno, and with Eric.
No, it's an honor, honestly, brother. The honor is ours. So, Dr. Arnold, here we are a year later. What's the first thing that comes to your mind? Or what's the first thing that you want to share with the public, with the viewers out there?
Well, one of the things that I think we should really be thinking about is this vaccine that we've been blessed with, having this the availability of a vaccine that can prevent this disease. And I did one really quick calculation. You know, when President Biden was at the reflection pool with all of the luminaries, you know, going down to the, you know, Washington Monument, yes, and it was this beautiful scene. I was looking at, you know, some of the information they were giving, and they said that at that point in time, we had 502,000 deaths in the country. And when I started looking at it, I calculated what would have happened if we had had that vaccine in December of 2019 and people had been vaccinated. We would have saved 476,900 lives that were lost.
Wow.
We would have had 25,100 lives that probably still would have been saved because the vaccine actually helps to recover even if you do get COVID-19. So we would have had a major change in what the outcome was. We may have had saved over 500,000 lives at that point in this country.
Wow.
So we don't want to go forward recapitulating what happened over the last year of losing these lives. So that's why it's so important to get vaccinated.
Absolutely. And I just want to take time right here, right now. Anyone that's watching who's lost a family member, there are many people who are still recovering. There's a term, Dr. Arnold can explain it better than I can, long haulers, people who have been perfectly healthy. Now they have, I guess you say, pre-existing conditions. They're still having symptoms or having some side effects from dealing with COVID-19. So we just want to, our condolences on behalf of the Geno Jones Show, my prayers and our condolences, and just to lift you and your family up in prayer. They are gone, but they're never forgotten. They may be gone physically, but their spirit and their soul resides inside of you. And that's just one message that I want to share. So Dr. Arnold, so let's just cut right to the chase. One of the biggest problems we're still having here in America is the term is vaccine hesitancy. That's a mouthful. They're hesitant to get the vaccine. So let's speak to that. And because I had a conversation with someone, very intelligent person, and they were still this little bit hesitant to get the vaccine. And I told them, I said, well, look, what you need to do is go back and look at some back episodes and listen to what Dr. Arnold said. And one of the biggest points of pushback that I got in the conversation was that, well, you know, this vaccine was made too quick, something wrong, and I think I'm going to wait because, you know, when you make something too quick, something's going to go wrong, and they inject that in your body, and you really don't know what's going inside of you. So, Dr. Arnold, I know you've spoken to that. We've spoken about that both times you were on the show. So could you just speak to that one issue? And I'm sure you probably heard that. I had that conversation hundreds, if not thousands of times. People basically saying to you the same thing. Well, you know, Dr. Arnold, well, they sure made this vaccine pretty fast. I thought it takes 10 years to make it. So could you please kind of just dispel any hesitancy about that?
Yes, absolutely. Well, you know, the first thing is, I have one of my quotes I get to give the students when I give talks and all that, and on these Zoom meetings, is that science never asks you to believe in it, but it is really tremendously unforgiving if you do not.
Now wait, so Eric, so full disclosure, so Dr. Arnold, he said that to me last night, and I cracked up. So Dr. Arnold, I want you to say that again. Put your chest in it, because I want people to really, because it is so true. And actually, I told him, Eric, I said, Doctor, who came up with this thing? Where did it come from? And he said he did. So I said, you need to trademark that phrase, because it is so true, and it simplifies everything. So please say that again.
Okay, what I tell people is that, you know, science never asks for you to believe in it, but it is, it is remarkably unforgiving if you do not. Yes. So it doesn't care whether you believe in it or not. So you can walk to the edge of a cliff and not believe in gravity, and then you take a step and science will prove it wrong. But it doesn't care whether you believed on the way down.
Yeah, it's true. That's so true. Yes.
So, you know, and science is something that we've had historically. It goes back to Africa, where we were doing things, variolation, that was inoculations. We actually were using that for smallpox generations before Jenner came out became the father of it. Just like, and Hotep was sort of passed over as father of medicine back in Egypt. Yes. So this is a historical thing that we have been part of science from the beginning. And actually, there was a one person, a person who was a slave who was in Boston in 1700, and his person that was his master, who was a preacher actually, was Cotton Mather. And as a result, he told him how to use the variolation method to save people in Boston. This is before the Revolutionary War, before Crispus Attucks stepped onto the stage, 1776. So he had actually had a major impact by saving tens of thousands of lives in Boston before the Revolutionary War even occurred. So when people start saying that this is a new type of technology, it's been around for about 20 years, this particular type, and it's been used for MERS, it's been used for SARS, it has been used, for, several other things like Ebola during President Obama's administration. It actually quenched the whole Ebola threat
Wow.
by making sure that people were actually vaccinated, and they watched people very closely. So the thing that when people say it's rush, it's because of that name Warp Speed.
Yes.
They were trying to, I'm a military person, so, retired Army 26 years. So when they started trying to get the space, mission going and get the space branch, into place.
Space Force, yeah.
Yeah, the Space Force with the, and I said the first people are going to be the first people enrolled as space cadets, going back to the 70s terminology.
Yes.
So, it was kind of a strange kind of thing that they were doing. So, that's warp speed was actually a really terrible term for them to use.
Yeah.
Because actually the science has been done and used in the same way since its beginning, its inception. It was phase 3 trials, right? So it went from phase 1, 2, and 3, double-blinded controls trial. It was done exactly proper, the way you should do it. And you had more scientific scrutiny about this vaccine than any other vaccine in the history of mankind. You had people observing this from every country, every conceivable angle. You had the CDC, you had the FDA, you had all these people watching this to make sure that this was done right, because they knew the seriousness of what this could mean for humanity. And we're watching so many people die, as we know. And they said, well, we're going to make sure this is done the correct way. The only thing that they did take out of the way was the administrative roadblocks, 2 to 3, years of administration, where you'd have to go from one policymaker to another and approve this and go through this and go through that. Said, we don't have time for that. We got to save people's lives. This is an emergency that we're, really involved in. And also what they did was look at this and they said, well, we have better telecommunications. Let's share the data. So you had scientists from around the world sharing data with no geographical restrictions, no, political means, getting in the way of the scientists actually sharing data. So this was done in a very structured way. And the vaccines that came out, Moderna, Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson, and then down the road, we'll see what AstraZeneca is going to be coming on board soon. But they have been shown to be safe and effective for Moderna, Pfizer, and Johnson & Johnson.
So let's recap this, everybody. I want you to pay close attention. So, Dr. Arnold, you teach, so this is going to be like a class for everybody watching. So here's the bottom line. The technology that researchers and doctors like Dr. Arnold were using to come up with the development for all of these vaccines. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Arnold. This technology, you said, basically you guys have been working on this technology roughly for 20 years, correct?
Correct.
So they didn't just pull it out there behind and be like, oh, here's a vaccine.
No.
So basically, I'm going to translate it. When you hear the term administration, see, Dr. Arnold is nice and he's professional, but I'm just going to use the term. There's a radio legend, a guy named Joe. He's on Sirius XM. Eric, help me out. You know what I'm talking about. Brother Joe Madison. Joe Madison has a term. He said, we're going to put it where the goats can get it. So we're going to reduce it to its least common denominator. So the science, the technology, the researchers, the doctors like Dr. Arnold, and the scientists, they have been working on this. When you talked about SARS, basically SARS was a respiratory virus started in South Asia. MERS was a respiratory virus that I guess started in the Middle East. And so all these COVID-19, all these are respiratory viruses, just because the coronavirus, correct me if I'm wrong, is really a family of viruses. The common cold is a part of the coronavirus family. Am I correct or incorrect?
Correct. That's correct.
So
Yes.
the technology, 20 years, has been around for 20 years. So you say, well, the technology's been around. How come they didn't have vaccines before that? Well, this is where I'm going to jump in and kind of translate things for you. So your pharmaceutical companies didn't see a profit margin. They didn't see how they could make profit by mass producing this. But since the profit margin, that concern was eliminated basically because you had all these countries, basically the entire world said, listen, we got to get this vaccine. Don't worry about the money. We'll underwrite whatever cost that you're going to have. As a matter of fact, President Biden yesterday announced that America, the government, bought another 100 million vaccines from Johnson & Johnson. So I believe we now officially have a total of 800 million vaccines. Does that number sound right, Dr. Arnold? In total?
Yes. In total, yes.
So it's not that the technology wasn't around. It wasn't that this was rushed. They didn't pull it out of there behind. The technology was there, but these large pharmaceutical companies didn't see the profit margin in it. They felt that there was no way that they could mass produce this and make money or not lose money. Is that pretty accurate, Dr. Arnold?
Well, yeah, I think the pharmaceutical industries were concerned about that, because it's always, they're businesses and they have to, work within, their budgets and how they function. But I think that there was a deep concern because many of the scientists who are virologists and, a lot of doctors work for these companies as well.
Right.
So I think they did have a concern from the beginning about, producing a vaccine that would be effective. And one of the things is that with these pharmaceutical companies is that if this virus were to go rampant throughout the world, their existence would actually be brought into question. It could take out their CEOs, their staff.
Good point. Yes.
So everyone is vulnerable to this virus. So it was a general threat to everyone. And so I think that there are always these profit motives and geopolitical considerations in the background, but I think that they did an incredible job to get a vaccine out this fast. And the reason why they got it out this fast is what we were talking about before, making sure that, they remove some of the administrative roadblocks, communicated with one another, shared data and information, and then actually set up really well-structured clinical trials.
So, Eric, 1 year ago tonight, the NBA made a decision that it had never made. As a matter of fact, I don't know in the history of sports, you'll correct me, I don't know, maybe around World War II, to where you had a major sports league suspend a season indefinitely. Really, we were 2/3 into the season, going toward the playoffs, and the NBA was the leader. They were like the canary in the coal mine. And I want you to speak to that and the impact, because it seemed like when the NBA made that decision, it was like a come to Jesus moment for everybody else. I mean, businesses, corporations, and restaurants, because everything else seemed like businesses started closing down, and folks, corporations were telling people to work from their house. So I don't know. I think for me, Adam Silver, who is the commissioner, and the NBA, from a leadership position, I think they deserve to get a lot of credit for making that call when they did. Because there were even players and owners in the league were kind of scratching. I saw their head. Mark Cuban, I remember seeing him on TV that night. I think he was looking at a text when he got the message. He's like, what? Why? We postponed the season. What the hell is going on? So, Eric, I want you to speak to that.
Yeah, just got to commend the commissioner and the NBA for using science, as the doctor so eloquently pointed out earlier. Remember, at that time, we didn't have, any vaccine that was on the horizon that we could see for the next several months at the very earliest. So this thing was going around. I remember hearing it was like having a bad flu to people are dying. So now it's very aggressive. And science at least showed that if you stayed homebound and stayed away from other people, the chances of spreading the virus and the infection would be less. And so let's cut this off. And then, well, we'll come back a few months later and take 22 teams, and we're just going to do it in a bubble. Now, we had the young man from Houston try to sneak a woman in the bubble. You remember that one? Yeah. But the idea that they use the science in terms of protection, and we always had a couple players here and there that might have had to undergo protocol. But for the most part, they went without too many hiccups, having the rest of their season in the playoffs in Orlando, in the bubble. And because other people weren't really sure what they were going to do yet, all eyes were on them. So the NBA kind of they were the only escape for many people sports-wise. And you watch these, faces, these cardboard or these TV screens in the audience, and
the
you
piped
watch
in,
the NBA,
right?
Yeah,
the piped in crowd noise
and crowd noise,
yeah.
and once you get in game mode, if you've competed at anything, but especially sports, even on a lower level than pros, once they lock in to get the job done, they don't hear the crowd or whatever. You're not going to be down by 20 and say the crowd really got us back into it. Now you better get to work and play some defense. So I really commend them. I mean, I remember, there had to be a couple of games canceled because there might have been a slight outbreak, 3 or 4 guys on the same team, but that's how aggressive the virus is. And that they were able to adjust and make it through and have a championship. Should be an asterisk by it,
Really? You feel that way?
You're the big Laker fan, right?
Yeah.
Asterisk, no. A championship's a championship, I guess. But
let me jump in.
Surreal.
Well, let's jump in right there. Since you opened up Pandora's box,
I got him going.
Let's wait
for the pull out the
right. Let's briefly address this. So I guess here's the question, and it's really it's a question, but I guess it could be a debate opinion. One could argue that championship should have an asterisk because the challenges that all the teams, including, of course, the Lakers, I guess, full disclosure, I'm a fan, but the physical challenges, the mental challenges of having to stay in shape, because, there were some teams, from Los Angeles and other cities, they got in the bubble and, they wanted to get lemon pepper wings and, didn't want to be there and just, so it was a challenge mentally to kind of stay together collectively as a group. So I guess on one hand, you could argue that winning that championship may have been harder than a normal championship because you were still facing the uncertainty. Still, there's this global pandemic, this virus that's out there, even in the bubble, there's still a threat that, it's not 100% guaranteed, because I think, like you said, there were still some people who did come down with COVID who tested positive in the bubble. Then they would isolate them and then do contact tracing. So I was just saying, there's an argument to be made that asterisk could be like, wow, this should be damn near 2 championships with everything that you had to overcome just to complete that season. Because for a long time,
bizarre.
Yeah, for a long time, Eric, I didn't think that they would be able to complete the season. I didn't. What about you?
Yeah, it was bizarre to say the least, to have that time off and then to come back. I think they canceled in March and then they came back in
like August,
July,
August, yeah, right around that time.
July or August,
right?
And then they finally finished up at some point in September.
Well, actually, I thought, was it September, October?
It might have even stretched into October. Yeah. I'm not sure, but every game is neutral. I mean, it was just so many different adjustments that they had to make. But to take, I would think, one of the most dangerous. Now, people would say football, but they got equipment and junk, and they hit each other. But basketball, they're sweating on each other and checking each other and bumping against each other. There's not a play that goes by hardly where you don't bump somebody.
Right.
And so that we didn't have a situation where there was a league-wide outbreak showed that their use of the science to protect the players, for the most part, I would bet over 95% of them were unaffected by the COVID that went around if they cooperated with the protocol. And once they did contract the virus, they were immediately whisked away, isolated, contact traced. So they really kept that under control. And I have to commend them for that, and commend the Lakers too. And LeBron, does it again. And it was tough, and it was competitive, and it was compelling. I was a little surprised that, I almost forget who they beat, Miami.
Yes.
But would that have happened the same way if we're playing in front of our home crowds? Would Miami have made? I don't know, but yeah. I'm pretty sure there's a good chance the Lakers would have. I don't know if their opponent would have been Miami, but we'll never know that, will we? Right. Everybody was playing on the same stage. Everybody had the same set of circumstances, except the fella trying to sneak a woman in. I don't blame him. He's young, You think you can get away with something? I probably would have tried it if I was 20 or something.
Wait, let's not forget Lou Williams. He had to make the pit stop in Atlanta at Magic City, this legendary adult entertainment venue.
Gentlemen's club.
Exotic performers to pick up some. Actually, it's a spot. Basically, it's a legendary strip club, primarily African-American female dancers. Legendary, iconic, global for those who love strip clubs, called Magic City. So apparently Lou Williams, who's a native of Atlanta, he's gone there so many times because these lemon pepper wings are just that good. Now, look, I love lemon pepper wings, so I can kind of get it. But so, Eric, I know you know the story that on the menu you can order lemon pepper. I think it was Sweet Lou's lemon pepper wings. That's his name, Lou Williams. Sweet Lou's lemon pepper wings.
Sweet Lou's lemon pepper wings, and my grandmother would say, and some pepper tail girls don't hurt either.
Well, listen, anytime any restaurant or any establishments, if they put some food on the menu with your name on it, then either you own the joint or you have to be a pretty damn good customer. I don't know. Dr. Arnold, is there any restaurant where they should have some food named after you? What's your favorite food?
Oh, my favorite food?
Yeah.
So many different types. I haven't met much I didn't like. That's the problem. But
especially during this time where you often confined to home and everybody's cooking and all this stuff is going on. You don't get to move around. But in many ways, and I'm sure the doctor will agree, and you too, Geno, that this pandemic, this situation where the world has to pause. Remember? California's air got cleaner.
Yes, it did.
Yes.
And stuff happened that we would have never thought of when we just all sat back and took a pause because science said you better, otherwise the price could be very cruel and unforgiving. And so we had to sit back and go, wait a minute, what's really important here?
Yeah.
What really should we be doing? And I have to commend the NBA that you kind of led the way about protocols and more safety and made it more palatable, if you will. Probably a better word than that, but more palatable for the NFL to try to go forward with its season, not too many in the crowds and stuff, and, try to play through. And a few of their players were impacted, but not many. And then the NHL finished up too, didn't they?
Yeah, and I'm glad you went there, Eric, because I want to real quick. I want you to speak on that, and then Dr. Arnold, I want him to, have some closing remarks, because I know that both of you guys got to run in terms of giving us a direction, where as individuals and in terms of when it comes to our leaders in government and business leaders and everything else. Speaking of leadership, Eric, do you know? I'm sure that the other leagues and the other commissioners, we mentioned the NFL, Major League Baseball, because Major League Baseball was in spring training. So they didn't really, but how much collaboration, do you know if the NFL, especially because that's like the big 800-pound gorilla when it comes to sports here in America, how much did what the NBA and Adam Silver do, how much was that a template? And how much did the NFL or maybe the NHL, some of the other leagues, college basketball, college football, how much did they consult with the NBA and some of the doctors and scientists that I'm sure that they collaborated with to try to
Right.
get an idea in terms of how they should go forward. Do you know? Have you heard
I'm not
anything about
sure
that?
how much they collaborated as leagues, but I know they collaborated with the medical and scientific community. So the biggest thing they all followed, the protocol they all followed, was isolation. We can play, maybe, as long as these players are isolated and the least amount of contact they can have with thousands of fans in the stands. Let's get that out of here. Let's pipe the music in, and let's at least keep them isolated. And still, there were some outbreaks in other leagues of, two or three guys on the same team got it, or the offensive line got it, or whatever. But these are the best trained athletes in the world. So we didn't have anybody that I know of who was near death or anything. So I don't know about how they collaborated with other leagues, but I know they listened to science. And for the most part, were able to have enjoyable, competitive kind of seasons, just with piped in music and the strange look of no fans in the stands. Heck, they even did pro wrestling with no fans in the stands and TV monitors with fans waving and stuff. So, I have to commend them. I thought everything would shut down, like most of our lives have shut down.
Absolutely.
Dr.
Dr.
One thing,
Mm-hmm.
one thing Erica was saying was really kind of interesting is that, in all of these sports, they are very, very keen on injury protocols, right?
Yes.
So if you twist your ankle, hit your knee, or they are used to following protocols. And I didn't even think about it that way. That maybe that's part of why it was so easy for them to adapt and say, yes, this is just another protocol for safety, and making our players are safe. Yeah.
So, Dr. Arnold, I got a couple minutes here. So, in closing,
Okay.
What going forward? What do you want to say to us as individuals in terms of what we need to be careful of? Because we can't just let our hair down, because it's not over yet. We can see the light at the tunnel, but we don't want that light to be like a train. So, as individuals, as leaders, in the business world, politicians, governors, mayors, people making decisions, what advice would you give to us?
Well, the thing that I really would give is, and you see my, because I know the Ericsson, so I have a little, tennis ball. It could have used a basketball too. And this little spike that's in it is really what the spike protein is like.
Okay.
And if I were to remove this from the ball, the vaccine can only make this spike. It can't make the virus itself. So the thing I would tell people is making sure you get vaccinated, because there are three different ways we can approach COVID-19. One is making sure that you wear your mask, make sure you physically distance 6 to 8 feet, and wash your hands at least 20 seconds with soap and water. So that's a public health measure. Another one is getting the vaccine. And the vaccine is 95% effective for Moderna and for Pfizer, 84% effective for the Johnson & Johnson, which is still extremely good. And it's actually was tested in a different time frame, so more effective against the South African variant. So that's the second arm, is getting the vaccination. The third arm is what you want to avoid. That's when we have to give you antiviral drugs, to give you steroids, to put you in an intensive care unit bed, and to intubate you, and to give you supportive care and hope that you survive. So the thing that you want to avoid is getting into that bed in that hospital. And so the thing I would tell public health officials, and I sort of diverge a little bit from the CDC recommendation right now about if you've been vaccinated, you can be around other people who are vaccinated. I get that part to a degree. But the part about being with people who are totally unvaccinated still gives me a little bit of trepidation, because we have these variants going around. So even if you've been vaccinated, you still want to minimize your risk. You still should be wearing your mask and doing the physical distancing and washing your hands. So I would like to have all of these legislators and people who are in these political positions listen to the science. Just like Eric was saying, the NBA listened to the science and did well.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Damon Arnold, Eric Clemons. Thank you, guys. I know you guys are both busy. I'm going to let you run. We'll talk soon. I want to have you guys back on again. Thank you very much.
Oh,
absolutely.
Yeah.
All right.
Geno, it's always a pleasure. Doctor, pleasure meeting you.
Honor meeting you.
Thank you. All right. It's Dr. Damon Arnold and Eric Clemons, fabulous guys there. So. I know. I just hesitancy. There you go. I know. I'm anal like that. Thank you for letting me be a part of your life. As always, God bless each and every one of you. God, most of all, thank you for letting me do the Geno Jones Daily Variety Show, Monday through Friday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time, here, live on my YouTube channel, live and in living color. Okay, the Geno Jones Show, brought to you by Lockwood Outdoor Advertising, converting cars to cash for your business. Yes, it is the only Black-owned outdoor digital advertising company in the state of South Carolina. So you got a business, you want to reach this market, please reach out to them, lockwoodoutdoor.com, lockwoodoutdoor.com. We are all about supporting Black businesses. We support any business, but we are all about supporting Black businesses here on the show, because if we don't support Black businesses, who else will? And historically, not too many other people have. So if we don't support ourselves, we can't expect anybody else to support us. So let's do that. So lockwoodoutdoor.com, check them out. All right, I love you. I really do. Mother, I love you. Thank you for watching. To those who have lost someone from COVID-19, for those who are still experiencing symptoms, or you're still having like the after effects of recovering, you're still recovering from COVID-19, I lift you up in prayer. And for those that have lost someone, I'm just going to kind of paraphrase something that President Biden said. There will come a day to where when you think of that person that you lost, a smile will come across your face before a tear runs down your eye. I love you. I really do. God bless you. Thanks for watching. Tomorrow, the Week in Review edition of the Geno Jones Show, right here live at 6:30. Don't forget, we got to turn the clocks up 1 hour Saturday night before you go to bed. We're going to talk about that also. It's the Grammys weekend. My girl Lettucey, who was my guest, is up for a Grammy. So we're going to speak that into existence. Lettucey winning that Grammy. All that and more right here, Friday, live, 6:30 on YouTube, my YouTube channel, The Geno Jones Show. Once again, till next time, thank you for watching and be blessed.
Subscribe and tune in to the next episode of The Geno Jones Show, exclusively right here on YouTube.